Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Night with Shayna. You guys seem to love the last episode. After what was a really difficult weekend for Watford, drawing away at St Andrews against Coventry City. And to be honest, Shane, it's chalk and cheese with the two episodes. That week we were kind of questioning Xisco's future. And I think some may still be. It's only one result, but the positivity in the fan base is at a peak right now, and a peak this season. I think beating any team 6-0, but to beat Bristol City 6-0 at home was a massive statement of intent. But first off, Shane, how's your weekend been? All good?
Yeah, it's been all right. Happy Valentine's Day to anyone watching.
Oh, yeah, happy Valentine's Day, Shane. I'll tell you what, there's no one else I'd want to spend this evening with apart from you.
Do you know something? Yesterday, the Valentine's Day weekend started slightly early for me as I
Did it?
turned on to Hive Live's the pre-game preview and saw Aurelio Gomez on there.
Oh.
And it brought back so many great memories. It was like seeing an ex again, frankly, to be quite honest with you. Although slightly better in the respect that we had good memories of this guy. So it was nice, man. It was great to see him. You know,
I miss legend, isn't he?
Oh,
legend.
Such a great guy. Honestly, such a great guy. It was nice to see Ben Foster and Alec Chamberlain as well doing the coverage yesterday. Really fascinating chat. Kind of building up to the game. And, listen, you talk about the positivity. It's nice to see everyone smiling again. It was great to see the match review with yourself, Sam Elliott. All smiles. It's fantastic, isn't it? And that's what we need to see more of this season, given the circumstances. Games like that, games like yesterday were such a tonic for us, particularly the result. The result being a part of it, the performance, I thought, was superb yesterday. Going 1-0 up, it's all well and good, all great. And, I think before the game, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't particularly positive going into the game. I thought we were going to struggle, in all fairness. And I did say it last week, it's got to be down to Xisco. He's got to change things up. I called for a change in formation. I called for certain players to be dropped. The likes of Troy, the likes of Andre, and that, well, guess what? That actually happened. So tuning in at 2:00 yesterday to check the teams, I was like, oh, wow, he's actually done it. Okay.
Were you surprised by the team, Shane?
Yeah, yes and no, I think. I think a lot's been made of the team. I think he had no choice but to change things up, really. I think things were so low after last week. The general atmosphere in the fan base. This episode last Sunday was pretty grim, looking ahead, kind of a lot of just uncertainty with what we were going to see in like the coming weeks, etc. But I think he had to change it. I think he was very brave to change it. 4-3-3, I think, worked to perfection. I think a lot of people have kind of commented on the players and and the personnel and how they kind of adapted to it and all of that. I think pointing out the personnel is all well and good, but we've got to bear in mind that this is the same set of players except Dan Gosling and the left back whose name I've forgotten.
Achraf Lazar.
Lazar. That's it. I will remember his name for this in future. But to be fair, apart from those two, every other player has had minutes in the team this season. And I think people will point to the personnel and say, you're playing them in the right positions. I think that's kind of part of it. I think the formation is the crucial part of what happened, of why we were so fantastic yesterday. The 4-3-3, the wingers in particular, Sema and Sarr are a crucial part of this team. And it's as simple as that. Ishmaila Sarr, I'll start off with him because a lot of people, of course, have been talking about their standout players. And Colin Murray on the EFL show highlighted about 5 or 6, just called out 5 or 6 players and said all 6 of those had a standout game. But for me, my man of the match yesterday was Ishmaila Sarr. That was the best performance I've seen from him since Liverpool. It was a Liverpool kind of performance. He was sparkling. There was a little bit of swagger about him, a little bit of arrogance maybe, but he needed that. That's the kind of performance we want to see from him. That is the Ishmaila Sarr that we fell in love with in the Premier League. And it's the Ishmaila Sarr that a lot of fans from other teams have been like, well, yeah, we kind of claim to talk the talk with him, but Sarr wasn't really performing. Yesterday was a huge wake-up call. That was a huge siren to other teams in the Championship. He's back, and he looked brilliant yesterday.
What clicked, Shane, with Sarr? Was it purely the position, or was it just his overall performance improved?
I think his overall performance improved. I think the players around him as well. I think it helps if you've got João Pedro in there. He's making the forward runs. That's not to say maybe the likes of Troy and Andre weren't. I think some are still. I just think sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. I think Pedro's pure instinct is just to get into the box, to get onto the end of it. I think with Gray, I think with Troy and with Andre, you saw two very different things. You saw one guy sitting back in Troy. You saw Andre trying to make the roll forward there. A little bit mix and match, but ultimately the formation was a key part of that. The 4-4-2 is so narrow. The way that we were playing was so narrow. Sarr, Sema barely got into the game. Yesterday, they were right at the front, right at the very front of all the great things, frankly. And it worked for us. And going into the game, obviously Bristol City weren't in a great run of form. I was kind of aware of that. I didn't realise that they was just so bad, frankly, yesterday.
Did we make them look bad, though? Because I've heard a lot about that, Shane, in terms of Bristol City. People were saying, I know Dean Holden's under a lot of pressure at the moment. He did I saw the interview actually on their social channels. Then if you saw it, it was a real frank interview where he was just we weren't good enough. And I thought it was actually quite a good interview, to be fair. Yeah. But I think a lot of, he's come under a lot of pressure at Bristol City. But were they that bad, or did we just make them look bad, Shane?
I'll be honest with you, mate. There were more holes in their defence than in a block of cheese. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you, man. I mean,
where are you getting your cheese from, mate?
Switzerland. But yeah, away from the topic of cheese, what I kind of found was that we got the first goal. It was Ken Sema's goal, by the way. There was so much confusion around that. It's obviously come off Ken Sema. I mean, what a load of rubbish. Own goal for so long. I was like, no, rubbish, come on. But they just didn't seem to learn from that. Sarr, devastating down the right-hand side with his pace, lays the ball back, and when he lays the ball back to Sema, I think that might even have been for the fourth goal. All the defenders just standing there in a line, and Sema had all the time in the world to pick the far corner that he was going to put that in. I just think we stunned them with the early goal, which was rare, because when we usually go 1-0 up, we usually sit back, and that's basically the end of our attack. And that was what was so refreshing about yesterday. Perhaps we smelt blood a little bit with that back line. Perhaps I noticed that they were playing a couple of youngsters, I think, in the back line yesterday. I know Alfie Mawson was suspended. I think a very young, I think it might be Townley or someone, a very relatively young player in there was at centre back, and we kind of just got at them, really. They brought on the legend, that was Maps, of course.
We do love Maps.
Half time. And, I was more fearful, actually, at the start of the game, coming into the game, of, him maybe being a key part of that defence. Will he be keeping Sarr quiet? He knows that. He would know the front three. He'd know any of our attackers better than any other player in that side. He didn't start the game. He kind of tried to steady the ship a little bit, I thought, in that second half. But we stunned them in the first few minutes or so of that game. And 1-0 up, I'll be honest, I wasn't particularly confident that we were going to hang on to it. But once we got that third goal, I thought, yeah, all right, this is now looking really comfortable. Mainly because I was looking for Bristol City to kind of come out, kind of attack us. They only had one shot on target. And throughout the entire game, possession for them was so minimal. But the fact that we were 1-0 up, the fact that we were able to capitalise on poor defending, a side that, let's be honest, pretty much gave up. Let's be clear. They basically took a back seat throughout the game. And we won with devastating consequences, or whatever the actual phrase is.
Yeah, Shane, you mentioned about Sarr, and obviously he contributed 4 of the goals with 2 assists and 2 goals. I've seen a lot of comments in the chat, and a lot of comments on social media about the midfield 3 yesterday, and it was a shame that Chalobah got a book in, because I think he actually played quite well. I thought it was a nice balance there, I thought, between the 3 of them. But a word for Hughes and Cleverley for you. I think those 2 guys just made a massive difference in the middle, didn't they?
First of all, Chalobah's yellow card was an absolute disgrace, and the referee should be struck off for a week for that. Frankly, that was never a yellow card. I can't believe he was booked for that. Hughes and Cleverley, this is what happens when you play Will Hughes. The dominance the man had in the midfield was superb. But we already know this, because we see him play week in, week out. It's kind of alarming, the fact that it's taken this long for Xisco to actually start him in the middle of the pitch. Stick him out on the wing, waste of his talents. In the centre, he scored the goal. It was a massive deflection. We obviously know that, and I think he knows that as well. But more than the goal, though, he gave us tenacity moving forward. His intentions are always to push us onto the front foot. Chalobah as well. I think Chalobah's done it incredibly well in the last few games. He's knitted together some good passes and some good passes, some good performances. I actually put Cleverley actually second in my overall man of the match kind of like rating, really, because I thought his anticipation for that second goal, for Sarr's first goal, was absolutely superb. To get the ball, turn in the box, play it across, ice cold that was from Clevs. And it's that experience as well that we've got in that midfield. You've got Cleverley in there, you've got Hughes who's dynamic, and you've got Chalobah in there who I think is performing game by game. Now, when it comes to Chalobah, he's rarely strung together a set of performances this season where he's looked fantastic. He needs to do that. Yesterday should be the biggest wake-up call he needs. The biggest wake-up call is to say, actually, Nate, you can do it. You can put in these kind of performances. I think he looks so much better as well when you've got the experience of Cleverley alongside him. You've got Hughes in there as well. I was so happy with that midfield yesterday. On top of that as well, he did go off at half-time because of the booking, I'd imagine. Gosling came on, and I thought he put in a very, very good shift as well.
Considering he hadn't played a lot as well. That's the thing. I think with Dan Gosling, it was one.
He hasn't played a lot. No. Considering he's not played a lot, I think it was about giving him minutes. He got a full half of football yesterday. Lazar as well, I think, came on slightly towards the end of the game as well. And I think there's been a lot that's been made about, kind of keeping this team together for the next sort of matches. Preston in midweek and Derby on Friday night.
Do you keep it unchanged, Shane?
I think it's tough to do that though, because I think you have to try and keep it unchanged for at least Preston away. I think you've got to do that for Tuesday night. My problem is we wouldn't really be having this discussion right now if we were in, say, the Premier League, because we'd have played yesterday, we'd be playing next Saturday and the Saturday after. You know what I mean? There's a week in between. Everyone gets a rest. The midweek games is tough. It's tough, and I saw a lot of quite dismissive kind of comments, towards other players who were left out. Said, "Oh, well, we don't really need them." I'd advise a lot of caution against that. Our general injury record isn't great, and all it's going to take is for an injury to one of the front three, and things will change. If I wake up on Thursday morning, check the team news for the Friday game, and I found out that João Pedro's out with an unspecified injury, could be out for 2 months. Well, in that case, we're screwed. Or one of the midfield players isn't playing. Chalobah's picked up a knock, and he'll be out for the next 2 matches. Gosling has to come in. We have to have confidence in those players that were left behind. And I want to say a word about that. Troy, Andre, Stipe as well. A few people saying, I noticed that Andre obviously did come on yesterday. I thought the game kind of slowed down slightly when he came on. I felt like we were just kind of giving players minutes, basically. I personally would be slightly worried if I was Stipe Perica, personally, because he wasn't getting the minutes ahead of Andre Gray. I think I've always seen Stipe as maybe the second person now in this team if you're playing 4-3.
I think he's got an injury, Shane, hasn't he?
I think
he might have
managing. Yeah,
might
I think
not.
they're probably managing his comeback and all that. I know Troy was injured yesterday, but he was also on the bench. But perhaps it harks back to not having too many. Go on.
Sorry, Shane. Yeah, just to touch on, I just wanted to expand on that Deeney and Gray point. Deeney was on the bench, but I think Adam Leventhal tweeted that he actually wasn't on the bench. He was injured, but he just took up a space on the bench, which is bizarre. Yeah, but is it any coincidence for you that we moved to a 4-3-3 and we saw an improvement without those two in the side?
I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think it's one of those things where we've kind of known Troy and Andre there. Very one-dimensional players. You can only play a certain way with them. It's got to be a 4-4-2. Troy can't play in a lone striker role on his own, and neither can Andre. We've tried to do that. It's simply not worked in that respect. I don't know about Stipe. I don't know if he can play in that further on. I personally don't think he'd be able to. I think Stipe and Troy are quite similar players in some respects. In that they're slightly. I think with Stipe, I know for a fact he's slightly taller. So. Troy and Andre, I think, are looking for a strike partner to play with. And I know this because start of this season, when Troy was getting back to fitness, Stipe and Troy both came out to do big interviews, calling for a 2 up top. Andre, I remember it. We spoke about that last week. Stipe did as well. Stipe was, I'm looking forward to playing alongside Troy. I'm going to learn a lot off him. He's been at the club for a long time, etc., etc. And I think that's the kind of narrative that they're going to be pushing. yesterday's performance would have been a massive wake-up call to all three of them. In a simple sense, to be like, if no one in this team, up the field, obviously, if there are now no injuries between now and the end of the season, this is going to be our preferred 11. This is the 4-3-3 formation. And unfortunately for you guys, we look better in this team. We look better in this formation. You know, as much as we've relied on Troy down the years to get us a goal, to haul us back into matches, yesterday was, I think, a wake-up call for him personally to be like, I'm going to have to maybe adapt to this kind of formation as and when I'm required. But I think it's dangerous territory to be saying, you know, Troy and Andre can leave the club, you know, their kind of role here is done. It doesn't take much for us to need them in a big game. And not every game is going to suit the 4-3-3. I personally am more confident when we're at Vicarage Road. I know that, you know, I know it's always obvious home advantage, but I feel like
I think we've got the best record in England, haven't we?
Yeah. It's the best home record in the top 4 divisions, I believe. Possibly in the whole of England. And in that respect, I noticed Scott Tingley, of course, putting on a lovely picture of the pitch a few minutes ago.
Carpet.
Yeah, and it is a carpet. And, you know, that's... it sounds a bit weird, but that's what our players are used to playing on. All right, they've had experience in other divisions, but it's a comfort to come home to the Vic. Right? There's no coincidence. You know, you can maybe make an excuse for it. Troy maybe says it in one interview. A few other players have come out and said it as well. I think even Ben Foster mentioned it in the Hive Live kind of pre-match kind of show to be like, you know, the pitch looks amazing. I can't wait to be back out there again. For me, when it comes to this formation, I'm so much more confident when we're at the Vic. I think against Derby, we could play the 4-3-3, and I reckon we will. And I feel like it kind of suits us with that home advantage. If we're able to nick that goal early against sides at home, I think we could punish them. Away from home will be different. Sides will try and match us, you know, etc., etc. But I think in the immediate kind of success of this formation, for the Preston game, we must start with 4-3-3. And then kind of adapt it as we go is kind of what I think should happen.
Shane, a lot of focus in our last episode was on Xisco Munoz, and we actually questioned his future at the club because I think we all agree after commentary it was one of the worst performances we've seen this season. There's been a lot of great performances, and that was right at the bottom, I thought, for what we expected. And I think there was someone in the comments, it was really interesting about what was mentioned on Hive Live yesterday. It was Charlotte here. He said, according to Hive Live, there was some kind of player meeting last week at the training ground. Sound like players recognised they were responsible for the situation and needed to take the initiative. I don't know whether you heard about that, Shane, but something seemed to click, didn't it? Something seemed to click. And how much praise do we have to give to Xisco Munoz? Because he put out a very bold lineup, as a lot of Watford fans have said, a very bold lineup, dropped big players, regardless. I know Troy was injured, but he dropped Andre, he changed the system. How much praise do we have to give to Xisco Munoz for his selection at the weekend?
I think we've got to give him a lot of praise because, you know, for any manager and in any situation, it takes balls to come out and say, do you know, we've got it wrong. I think the players coming out and taking responsibility is crucial as well because I feel like that's what they've kind of ducked this season. What with there being no crowds, you know, we're not there to give our audible support, as it were. And I think that does have an impact as well. You know, they trudge off the pitch, having lost a game, a poor performance, 2 shots on target, picking their noses as they go off the pitch. It doesn't really paint a fantastic picture, does it? Whereas them turning up in training, taking responsibility for the poor performances. And yet, the performances haven't been fantastic this season. You know, let's be clear, the Bristol City game is the first game I've genuinely enjoyed watching this season, aside from the Preston game. And also the game at Brentford when I was actually at the Vic. So I was able to kind of enjoy and, you know, look around.
Yeah, but in terms of what we saw and the performance.
On the pitch and all that. And I think Xisco does deserve a lot of praise for it. I think there's kind of like an interesting point to this because, you know, as you know, I get a lot of messages on Instagram and all that. You know, a lot of people, you know, enjoy contacting me about the game and all that. And actually,
make sure you follow Shane.
Thank you. I will make specific reference to this now, actually, as it has kind of come up. One person did message me yesterday to say it was a great win. Fantastic to see the lads playing with such a smile on their face. Great to see Xisco kind of change things up. But from a player's perspective here, Xisco had no choice but to change things up. And I think the fan in question was completely brutal about that. His job was on the line. And his point was, from a player's perspective, they came out to perform. knowing potentially that the manager is in a bit of a pickle, is in a bit of a problem here. His head is on the chopping board. Do we come out? Do we put in a fantastic performance and keep the head coach, kind of play for the head coach in some respects? Because, as I said, it wasn't an entirely new 11 starting yesterday. Those players have put in some abject performances this season. Have they just clubbed together in a meeting? I think Adam Messina actually even made reference to it in an interview he did for the Watford Observer, I think, after the game yesterday. I think he said something about, Troy kind of showed us the direction to kind of move in. We kind of moved together forward as a team. Backs up the whole player meeting kind of thing as well. Potentially, maybe Troy took that away from the head coach and the coaching side of things, being this is a players only meeting. We need to kind of straighten some things out that have been going on. And did they play for the manager, knowing full well that if he was to leave, we'd get in someone else who potentially wasn't Xisco, who, hate to be cynical when I say this, doesn't allow the players their freedom of a mobile phone and countdown and stuff like that. That's a very cynical
sorry,
way of
Shane.
looking at things.
That's a very fair point. Very fair point. Because I remember the first game, I was listening to Hive Live Extra, and Troy mentioned about, obviously it was a Boxing Day fixture, and Xisco gave them Christmas Eve with their family, Christmas Day evening with their families, and normally they stay in a hotel. So there's definitely an element there that he's a very good manager. I think that's all fair. I think maybe the problem some people have had is that because he hasn't done, when things aren't going great, he hasn't got a lot to fall back on. He's got 20 games in the Georgian League. I think people have said there's not a lot to fall back on when it's not going great. But do you think the fact that it was make or break for Xisco, we've said it a number of times on this channel, the Bristol City game was make or break for him. He's bought himself another game, at least.
Yeah.
Do you think that caused a reaction?
I think the manner of yesterday's victory, has brought him more than one game. I think it's brought him this period of matches. I think because of how well it worked yesterday. Fans spoke about, we need a convincing victory. I was kind of sitting there thinking, yeah, we do, but come on, we're not going to get a convincing victory. God, yeah, we'll win it 1-0. It'll be a Deeney 91st minute penalty or something. But actually, do you know what? We won 6-0. I think it's actually, as I said, I think I might even have made a mention of it last week. I think he'll probably be now he'll be given this period of matches up until potentially the end of the month, culminating in the Bournemouth game, which I think is a huge game now. Every game is massive. We're obviously going to say that, but I think the next
games
three,
on there.
Huge, but Bournemouth has just gargantuan, frankly, because they're another promotion rival in there. We need to beat them. Similar way to how we beat Norwich. I'm not particularly bothered about the performance in that game. We need to get the win. We need to get the 3 points. It's about climbing up that table, pressing as much as we can on our opponents. Going back onto the Xisco point, I do think there is an element of that. The players' meeting, as Charlotte actually mentioned in that, kind of backs that up a little bit. I was aware of there being a meeting, wasn't sure what was actually discussed. I know Messina came out and said, the stuff about Troy, pointed us in the right direction kind of thing, showed us, the way to go. Maybe Troy was the one to turn around and say, do you know what? I'm not particularly feeling 100%. I think Foster actually made a mention of it. He said that Troy hadn't trained for most of the week because he actually had an injury. Whether or not that's true, whether Troy decided to say, do you know what, we do need to change things up. I, as the captain, will turn around and say, right, I won't play. I'll be with you guys on the bench. I think there's a big part of that as well. At half-time, 4-0 up. He was in full training tracksuits, clapping their hands, patting the backs, snapping the bums of some of the players, as they all walked off the pitch. I think there was a big part of that sort of senior cheerleader kind of role in the team, almost to be like, okay, you might be injured, but you're not going to go and sit in the stands, or you're not going to be at home for the game. You're going to be on the bench. You're going to be cheering on the lads, giving them vocal support. I could hear him actually. I actually had a stream for the game. In some of the, I think in one of the I Follow streams, you could actually hear him barking from the bench, and it was obviously him because there's no one else that has the loudest Brummy accent in the whole of Watford, frankly. And it was quite clearly him, and he was shouting down to some of the players, giving them a lot of encouragement and all that. I think kind of stepping aside for him was massive to the team. He's able to give the cheerleader role and all that, and that's his role as captain. But I feel like the players kind of came out and actually put on a performance that Xisco would have been proud of, to be like, you know what? Yes, we are going to perform for you. Now, if that's the case, that's fantastic. That's great. They've got behind the manager. Fantastic. my comments about it being because of the kind of man that he is was maybe a little bit harsh in retrospect. But I think that has got something to do with it, because I noticed in the earlier days of Cisco, when Foster was going around with a little old GoPro and all that, there was a huge amount of happiness within the squad. The squad was smiling after the Norwich game. We saw all the videos, we saw all the pictures, the pitch cam, against in the Huddersfield game, him and the dog whistling assistant of his that he has, all getting in there, all going mental, shouting for every decision, yelling at the, yelling and wolf whistling at the players, getting them into position. It was very lively in that.
But it's quite calm now, isn't it?
And it is much, much calmer. I think obviously though those days Cisco was slightly different. The first game against Norwich, he was trying to get his ideas across. But you know what, the players do deserve credit for actually getting together, talking maybe through their differences, talking through what's been going wrong, and more importantly, it's taking some ownership of some of the poor performances. The change in formation absolutely has had a huge part of it. I think tactically things have had to change, but the players looked happier yesterday. Sarr, Sema with the widest grin you've ever seen. Players really playing for each other. The whole atmosphere seems so much better. The problem now is we're talking about just one game. We now need to see this across a string of matches for the rest of this month, because this month is now massive.
Shane, do you feel this is a turning point in our season? Is it too early to say that?
It'll only be a turning point if we win the next 4 games, because that's how we're going to maintain our position in the table. We were helped this weekend, a fantastic thrashing this weekend, but we were helped by other results as well. It's not going to work out like that. It's not going to fall for us like that every weekend. I know Millwall, Nottingham Forest getting results.
Barnsley today.
Losing today. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge... And that, again, when you put in the work on the Saturday, as the players did, come out, a fantastic performance, reap the rewards. It's not going to happen every week. Of course it's not. Those teams around us are very, very strong, right? With maybe the exception of Reading. I know Reading have been in the Premier League and all that, but I think if you're looking at maybe Norwich, looking at Swansea, looking at Bournemouth, they've had experience of being promoted in recent seasons to the Premier League. Norwich in particular, Bournemouth in particular, they came up with us in 2015. They're not stupid. They know. Bournemouth with their new manager, Norwich with their
Daniel Farke.
Fantastic attack, Daniel Farke as well. They know. They know what we're like. We know what they're like. They know that ultimately they know that we're going to be prepared, and we know that they're going to be prepared. Other sides in there like Reading and Brentford in particular, haven't been in the Premier League for a good number of years now. For their fans, it would be a dream. And I still think Brentford, I think they are the standout team in this division. There is a little bit of inexperience within their ranks. If you look through that team, none of them were there last time they were in the Premier League. Why? Because it was back in the 90s, late 90s, I think it was. In our team, how many of those players in there have had experience of a promotion campaign? 2. Troy and the mighty, legendary, very sexy Craig Cathcart. Right? Only those 2 players have any experience. But that kind of tells the Bournemouth side as well. They're exactly the same. Norwich, they've got a lot of experience. Daniel Farke, the manager, just to quote one person, has managed the team, kept them in the Prem, come back down again, etc., etc.
But even Shane, it's the likes of Hughesy having experience at Derby, Chalobah being on loan at a number of Championship clubs when he was at Chelsea. So we've got, although we've got the only 2 from that 2014-15 promotion side, there's actually quite a lot of experience across the pitch. That, especially in key positions in the spine as well. Even if Foster's not playing, it's great to have him in and around the squad.
Foster,
what I wanted to ask you, Shane, is not do we get ahead of ourselves, but maybe do we? I remember Chalobah saying on High Live Extra yesterday, it's important not to get carried away and not be overconfident, but almost to take this positivity into the next run of games, right? Are you confident that we can do that? Because we've seen it a number of times this season where, we'll have a good result and then it'll fall a little bit flat quite quickly. But do you genuinely believe, and it's a similar question to the last one, that it's clicked now? Is it almost that we just need to continue with the way we've been going at the moment? And almost, I think this is probably the first time really we've played on the front foot, if we're being completely honest. It might be a couple of passages of play, maybe against Norwich, but the first time for maybe 90 minutes where we've been dominant, we played on the front foot. So it's simply as just playing the same formation, same players in the same way.
I think there is a little bit of danger kind of associated with that. Of course, I think the whole point of this division as a whole is that you need to be quite adaptable. You need to change up your team. You need to match your opposition, etc. This is kind of why I kind of go back to a little bit of the whole home and away kind of thing. I feel like at home we should be playing on the front foot. I think the fact that we beat Bristol City 6-0 yesterday and it shocked a lot of our fans is slightly annoying, frankly, because we should be playing on the front foot every single game this season. I don't care who that's against. Against Brentford, against Bournemouth, as we've seen 2 games at the Vic, we were very, very flat in both of those matches. Bournemouth game, we took an early lead, we just sat back. We got punished at the end. The game against Brentford, rubbish first half. Absolutely diabolical first half. Flat, scored the goal, sat back. They then equalised, nothing else happened. A disallowed goal which should have stood, which is annoying. Now we look at it in the wider context of things. But aside from that, we didn't really threaten in either of those 2 matches. Now, at home, as I say, we need to be playing on the front foot. Away from home is a bit different. I still feel uncertain with our away form. Something drastic is going to happen for that to change. If you're asking me the question, do I think we're going to be able to maintain that? I think it's more of a case of we must not lose in our next set of matches.
Win your home games, draw your away games.
Yeah, and that is literally the formula, isn't it? To promotion. I've heard that more times than I've heard my own parents in the last few months, to be quite honest with you. That phrase of...
I hope your mum and dad are well, by the way, Shane.
Yeah, they're all very good there.
Good man.
They're luckily not with me, which means they're not listening to me moan and ramble all the time like they used to back in the... What they would call the good old days, but I think they're just lying about that, obviously. But but it is crucial that we kind of go on a bit of a run. And that is to be like, we cannot. Okay, here's the kind of the worst case scenario. Okay, we won yesterday, brilliant. We win against Preston, fantastic. We win the next 4 that's the best scenario until the end of the month. We put in some gritty performances in the away games, and we put out a fantastic performance against Derby at home, and we put on a good performance against Bournemouth, one that, let's say, most people maybe didn't expect. Fine. We cannot go into the game on Tuesday night in a worst case scenario and go off and lose the game. Playing negative, passive football,
got to be on the front foot,
taking an early lead, but then Preston come and counter us twice and win 2-1. Because that will make me very, very angry. And that will undo all the great work that we saw on Saturday. Obviously, the win on Saturday was our biggest win since 1982, which is an interesting stat. I've never seen one in my lifetime, and I don't think the vast majority of Watford fans have seen us win outright 6-0 at the Vic. I think the game was actually Sunderland. I think it was 8-0.
Was it 82?
Yes.
82, yeah.
Luther Bliss got an absolute hatful of goals. I remember, I think one of those Watford kind of history Twitter pages tweeted out a few weeks ago about that, one of those old reminiscing kind of things. Brilliant game. But it's one of those questions. It's a very hard question to answer in regards to, do I think we will? I think we will. Okay. If the game on Tuesday night was at home, yes. Yes, absolutely. I guarantee we'll carry that on. The fact that there's an annoying away game sandwiched in there is slightly annoying. I feel like we'll get a little bit bogged down with trying to outplay or try to outwit Preston. When they came to the Vic, they were all over the place with all their injuries. It's not the case now, frankly.
And they sat in a deep block. I remember watching that game, and they were like in a 5 at the back. It was really difficult to break down. I remember I don't know whether they'll approach the same at home, knowing our away form, but I think the way Alex Neil set up that day was pretty negative. I remember they had Scott Sinclair at right wing back, I think.
Yeah. But that comes into it, right? Because all the teams that we're playing away from home will know full well that our away form isn't great. Whilst the top of the home table form chart, our away from home record is very, very rubbish, basically. And we haven't picked up the points that we've needed to away from home. And, as I said last week, look at the teams towards the bottom of the table. Nottingham Forest or Wickham, just to pick on 2 names. Frankly, we haven't picked up the wins against them. Derby, again, we're playing them at home, away from home. It took a fantastic stunner from João Pedro to win that game. Aside from that, it was an absolute dog of a watch. I mean, I struggled to stay awake in that game. We cannot have that now. We've had a little taste of what we can offer. I still think, if you're asking me honestly, I still think the games at the Vic will be the ones where we'll go out, almost all-out attack, 4-3-3, go for it. We're the home team. We need to make the advantage count. We need to be winning our home games. If we're serious about promotion, which it looks like we are, in all fairness, Xisco's been backed, clearly, for this period of time, for however long, we don't know. But if we're serious about promotion, we have to win our home games. We have to play on the front foot. We have to, when getting the first goal, get that second, as we did yesterday. Get that third. Are there holes in that defence? Great. Go and grab a fourth. Press the opposition. Bully them into mistakes. The kind of things we've seen through in this Watford side all down the years. In some of those great championship seasons. That is what we must see. Away from home, I think, is always going to be different. And as I say, don't lose your away games. Don't lose your home games. That's got to be the message between now and the end of this month.
It's got to be.
This month is going to be season. I think we kind of get into the trap on the channel a little bit of saying this is now a massive game. This is a must-win game. I think this period of the next 4 games are season-defining.
Yeah.
After the Bournemouth game at 2:30 on Saturday, the 27th of February, that is when we can then look back on the channel and think, right, where are we now? Where is this team? And are we still up there? Are we still in the same position? Are we 4th? Are we 3rd? Are we climbing? Are we slowly making inroads to the automatic promotion spot? Yes, no. But it's crucial we play on the front foot at home. Important that we don't lose away from home.
Yeah, absolutely, Shane. And just to wrap up, it's been a really, really interesting episode again. And if you do enjoy, please do leave a like on the video and make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's nice to do one after a 6-0 win. That's always nice.
It is.
But make sure you go and follow Shano on Twitter and Instagram. The link is in the description below. Thank you very much to everyone who's watched today, by the way. I'll tell you what, Shane. We're going to wrap it up with a positive.
Go on.
6-0 versus Barnley. What were the 3 positives for you from that game? The 3 big positives.
3 big positives from that game. First of all, when we got the first goal, we didn't just sit back. We went for it. Fantastic to see us do that. Second of all, I've got to point out the performance of Ishmaila Sarr. I thought he was absolutely superb. We want to see more of that. That is the Ishmaila Sarr we've fallen in love with at this football club, showing other sides in this division and all of those other people that watch exactly what he's made of. I couldn't be happier for him. Genuinely, I couldn't be. That was a landmark performance. We talk about landmark performances. That could be his biggest coming of age in this Watford side.
That's the standard now, isn't it?
A real chance for him to show everyone this is what I'm capable of.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was fantastic. Third thing as well, it's kind of like a bit of a tough one to kind of maybe say, but I've got to go for the centre of the midfield. I thought Hughes in particular. It's so great to see him back again. I'm sure he'll be claiming the credits for that. For his goal. It's a massive deflection.
Ben wasn't letting him have that, was he? He was not letting him have that.
To be fair, actually, when you see it from the other angle, that other angle really, really does him dirty because it was going so far wide. But it was great to see him back in the central midfield. Great to see him running it. He's a little magician in there. He's such a dynamic tonic for the midfield. We need him in that centre, and I think Xisco would have watched yesterday and thought, yes, I've got to play him in there. If I now see him on the wing, I'll be very angry, and I will make a pilgrimage to Vicarage Road to tell him that. But in all fairness, he has to start in the centre. I thought he was brilliant. I thought actually out of the 3 midfielders, I would probably say he was just that little bit better. Cleverly, Chalobah played great as well. There's not taking anything away from them. But Hughes in the centre, where he belongs, was so great to see.
Yeah, there 3 big positives. Another one Ben mentions in the chat is Kiko back in the fold. That combination with Sarr is terrifying, terrifying. Yeah. But that's where we're going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you very much to everyone who watched today. Shane's 3 positives. Start, Sarr, and Hughesy. There we go. Let us know your 3 positives from the game down in the comment section below. As I said, make sure you do follow Shane on Twitter and Instagram. The link is in the description below. You can follow us on WD18 at WD18 Fans. We've got plenty more content coming up in the coming weeks, which is a busy period for Watford, a big period for Watford. So make sure you do subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Don't forget to comment down below what you made of it. And we'll see you very, very soon. Cheers, guys.